Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Real Talks. I'm your host, David Steele. Um, I hope everybody had a fantastic and safe holiday, and I hope they had a lot of good food. If spent some time with family, spent some time with some loved ones, all that good stuff. But we're back at it, and so it's Monday, and that means brand new week of entertainment news, and lots and lots of stuff to get to. So as you guys may or may not have seen in the little blurb down there, there's some big news of what happened over the weekend. And then I got a funny story coming up that only a certain person could do. And I'm fascinated by it. I'm really dying to get your take on it. So um, let's just dive right in. I want to talk about a couple things at the end of the show, and to tell you guys what is coming up and everything, and all that good stuff. So let's dive right into this. So as everybody knows, for the past 5 days, there has been a little movie that came out, and it was Super Mario Brothers. Super Mario Brothers has just taken the movies and the cinema by storm. And it's fascinating because this movie critically did horrible. It had a 56% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Now, I don't really discount that. I mean, I really discount that because of the fact that it is critics, right? I mean, not to say that critics aren't the end all be all, but there's a lot of different things, and we could talk about that in the time. However, the thing that's really striking is that it got a 96% audience rating. That blew me away. So it's something that it's just something that it's just amazing to see. And I'm going to tell you how well it did, and this is fascinating because it beat one of the biggest Disney films for a worldwide box office of all time. So this comes from Jeremy Fowler, who has popped in here a couple times, actually. I follow him on Twitter. Good friend. We've talked a couple times. So his headline reads, Super Mario Bros. Passes Frozen 2 for highest animated global box office opening with $377 million. Universal Illuminations' Super Mario Bros. Has now earned the largest global animated opening weekend in box office history, with a worldwide 5-day launch of $377 million, passing the $358 million record set by Frozen 2 on Thanksgiving weekend in 2019. Domestically, Mario was projected when it opened in theaters on Wednesday to earn a 5-day total of at least $125 million from 4,300 theaters. And I'm going to get to a statistic in a couple of minutes once we're done because I want to really go into this. And it has shattered that figure with $204 million grossed. Both that and its 3-day total of $143 million are studio records for Illumination, with the 3-day total that's being the third highest seen on Easter weekend and second only the $182 million earned by Pixar's Incredibles 2 among all animated features. It is also the new animation record for IMAX with $21.6 million worldwide. And of course, the film has blasted past every box office opening record for video game adaptations, nearly doubling the 3-day domestic record of 72.1 million set by Sonic the Hedgehog 2 last year, and shattering the $210 million global record by Warcraft in 2016. This weekend's record-breaking debut proves audiences of all ages and demographics will pour into theaters for a hysterically fun and authentic universe expansion of an already iconic franchise, said Universal's domestic distributor president Jim Moore. Nintendo and Illumination's creative synergy, allowed with Chris Mendelssohn's extraordinary leadership creating an entertaining juggernaut that will be sure to power up the box office for weeks to come. For theaters, this holiday weekend is another reason to pump their fists and hold on to that optimism that the box office is on a long but steady course to returning to pre-pandemic strength. Thanks in large part to Super Mario Brothers, overall weekend estimates have risen to $194 million, 76 million or 76% above the same weekend in 2019. The Super Mario Brothers movie's strong performance with the family audiences this weekend is just another example of the consistent consumer enthusiasm for seeing great films on the big screen, says Cinemark's chief marketing officer and content on Saturday. Moviegoers have demonstrated time and time again that they crave the immersive cinematic experience only theaters can provide. Regardless whether Mario legs out with moviegoers who don't have nostalgic memories of playing Nintendo games, all signs point to this animated film getting plenty of repeat viewings from families and gamers throughout April, as there won't be another major blockbuster until Guardians of the Galaxy 3 in early May. Depending on the strengths of these holds, Mario could have a great chance of passing the $939 million earned by fellow Illumination film Minions: The Rise of Gru to become the top grossing animated film since the pandemic began. Also opening this weekend is Amazon Studios Air, which aired into a newly truly story dramatic Ben Affleck that had just opened pre-weekend with production of a $20.2 million for 5 days, opening to 3,500 theaters. It's a respectful result for a film serving as a counter programming for older audiences not interested in Mario, and has earned strong reviews with Rotten Tomatoes scores of 92% and 98% audience with an A on CinemaScore. That said, Air is likely to fail to turn a theatrical profit at the box office given its $90 million production budget and $40 million marketing spending, the latter of which included a South by Southwest premiere. Air was a pivot by Amazon Studios from a streaming exclusive to a theatrical release at the urging of the late distribution chief, who joined Amazon from MGM as part of the acquisition of the latter legacy studio. Even if it fails to make its money back theatrically, Air is said by Amazon to be part of a larger plan to put greater investments into releasing films theatrically and the distribution infrastructure it gained with MGM and United Artists Releasing, the latter of which was absorbed by the MGM following the acquisition. Similar trends have been set by other studios, with Apple Original Films reportedly planning to significantly expand their theatrical footprint, while Warner Brothers has pivoted from films like Magic Mike's Last Dance and the upcoming Evil Dead Rise from HBO Max exclusives to theatrical releases. Among holdovers, Lionsgate's John Wick 4 and Paramount's Dungeons & Dragons Honor Above Thieves are in a virtual tie in the charts, with a slight edge going to Wick for $14.6 million in its third week. The Keanu Reeves shoot 'em up has grossed $147 million domestic and $300 million globally, and by next weekend it should become the highest grossing film in the John Wick series. Meanwhile, Dungeons & Dragons dropped 61% from its opening weekend for a $14.5 million second frame total and a $62 million domestic total. With strong reviews, there's still a chance that a film could have stronger legs as an alternative for 18 to 34 audiences to Mario in the coming weeks. But if it holds strong next weekend, aren't strong enough, it's likely that Paramount will have to turn to post-theatrical revenue streams to likely turn a profit on the $150 million blockbuster. One Paramount film that doesn't have anything to worry about theatrical profitability is Scream 6, when it completes the top 5 with $3.3 million in its fifth weekend. With $105 million gross in North America and another against a $33 million production budget, the sixth installment in the Wes Craven's meta slasher franchise is the first one to pass $100 million since Scream 2 way back in 1997. I want to thank Jeremy for that fantastic piece. There is a lot of stuff to go through. So, couple of things real quick. What I am going to do is I'm going to kind of restructure the show a little. There's not anything to worry about. All those people that are gracious enough to come in here and get comments, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the story. I'm going to give my thoughts, and then we'll touch upon anybody's comments, and we'll make sure we'll get to everybody. So I just wanted to let everybody know that. And we will get to you, I promise. That being said, this is unbelievable. Super Mario just blew everybody out of the water. So it's one of those things where when I saw the original estimate for Super Mario Brothers, I'm like, that seems a bit. Now, mind you, this was a couple weeks ago. They said 85 to 95 million. I said, oh, that's a bit high, even though it is Mario. My God, did it shatter it? So it not only shattered it, it broke it completely. It's unbelievable, the thought that this movie made $204 million in 5 days. Now, I want to put things in perspective real quick, because had this been a Friday to Sunday opening, okay, and Jeremy touched upon it in his piece, okay, this was the 30th highest opening of all time at $146.3 million, okay, and that's incredible to even think about. I've yet to see it. I definitely want to go see it. I'm looking. I've got to try and find it to go see this, because it's one of those things where this looks so much fun. There are a lot of reasons why this has made it so much money. Number one, as it's a 4-quadrant film, so guys like me, okay, they'll go see it because they remember the nostalgia factor. Number two, it's very short. It's only 90 minutes, so people are going to be eating this up, okay? Number three, okay, it's animated. So I think that that's unbelievable. And number four, everybody loves Mario. It doesn't matter what the sounds are. It doesn't matter what it is. Everybody loves Mario. And yeah, I'm so happy for it. And by the way, for the record, I said that Air was going to overperform. Okay. By the way, and I'll put the link in the thing up there, in the little card up there. Once the video is done, if you haven't gone to see Air, go see it. I recommend it to everybody. I said this was going to overperform for what it was, and by God, was I right? It was. It was about. It wasn't about Michael Jordan. It was about the business side of it, and it's one of the stories that you always want to find out more about, right? I loved it, and that's why it has a 92% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. I think that here's what I think. Honestly, at the end of the day, I'm going to put out a bold prediction. Okay, here's my bold prediction. Air is going to do better next week than it is this week, because everybody is seeing Super Mario. Don't be shocked, okay, next week if Mario plummets off a cliff. While there's still rewatchability to it, okay, everybody has seen it. Not everybody, but you understand, the majority of people, okay? Air is one of those pictures you can go to see again and again and again and again. Not to say you couldn't do it with Mario. I'm not saying that. But it's one of those things where I think that it's really going to pick up a lot of momentum. So I'm going to get to you in a minute, Coco. I see you. Just 2 seconds, and we're going to get to all your comments. The other thing, real quick, it's interesting to see that John Wick is doing so well. Okay, that made $14 million. It's just, or I'm sorry, Dungeons and Dragons made 14 million. That was fantastic. John Wick made $14.5 million. Look, we're starting to get into that trend of there are so many good movies now. It's what do I want to go see? And I think this is a good prelude to the summer. Um, and of course, Dungeons and Dragons, while it went down for $14.5 million, that's still a really good run at $62 million. So that is nothing to be ashamed about. I think that's going to do well because it's gotten word of mouth and everything else. So Coco says it beat Frozen 2 original record and it beat Sonic while box office length is just 3 days. Yes, that's what I was talking about. So this is, if you look at the 3-day total of this movie, okay, 3 days, okay, it is number 30 all time. Okay, it is number 30 all time, just behind Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 by about $2 million. So that tells you something. So the extra 2 days, the Wednesday and Thursdays, that was just icing on the cake for them. And once it took off, it took off. But even if it didn't have that, that's still a hell of an opening for an animated feature. So it's a masterpiece. Yeah, no. Now I'm curious. Are you talking about Air or Super Mario? Because they're both, from what I understand, Mario is so much fun that could very easily well be a masterpiece too. But if you're referring to Air, I totally agree with you, guys. If you haven't, I'll put, as I said, I'll put it in the thing. Mario. Okay, he says Mario. That being said, go check out the spoiler cast for Air. That's a good time. He says all the music is beautiful, especially Peach's castle theme. And by the way, speaking, that's a great segue, Coco. A little off topic. Okay, I was reading in the trades today that the Princess Peach's theme actually is going to be eligible for the Academy Awards. Now, I don't know all. I didn't read it. I just saw the headline, so bear with me on that. But I think that's fascinating. That could be something we could look forward to later on down the road. Um, I still think that um, he says still. Um, yeah. Oh, so yeah. So it's one of those things where you've seen it 3 times. Wow. But that goes to show you that there's a perfect example of that. Okay, that the audience here, it's so short, it's so much fun that people can go back and see it over and over and over. So I think that it's a fantastic movie. I mean, this is one of those feel good movies that is really going to be, um, it's going to be here for a while. But like I said, don't be shocked if this drops off a cliff next week because it just made so much money. I mean, I'll give you an example. Take a look at what Spider Man No Way Home did, right? Spider Man No Way Home made $257 million opening weekend. No, nobody knew it was going to do that. Okay. What ended up happening was, and by the way, it made like over 100 the next weekend, but it fell by 55%. Don't be shocked to see this thing fall by 55% either. I think that there's something to be said there. Um, the first time was to watch the movie, the second time was to experience it again, and the third time was to pay attention to all these things and details. Yeah. So you're like me in watching films, Coco. So when I watch a movie, the very first thing I do is I will absorb the content. And then I'll go back and I'll see it again and I will look at it and I'll pick up little things I may have missed the first time. And the third time is to enjoy the content, but also I can pick up other things that I missed. I mean, one of the most recent ones I went to go see, there's been several. I mean, Black Panther, Avengers Infinity War, Endgame, whatever, Star is Born. I saw that 5 times in the theaters, and it wasn't until the 5th time I saw it that I picked up something that was so important later on in the film. But yeah, no, I love going back to watch movies over and over and over. So anyway, guys, what do you think? How many times have you seen Mario? How many times have you seen Air? Which one did you like better? Would you ever do a double feature and go back and see them on the same day? Leave me your thoughts down in the comments and I'll get back to everybody. Okay, so speaking of Air, Air is just an unbelievable film, and we all know this. And so the screenwriter, and I talked about this in the spoiler cast. So the screenwriter, okay, his name was Alex Convery, and he actually had put this on the blacklist. So the blacklist is something that is for potential screenwriters that are ideas that just have not been touched, okay, by screenwriters that like you or I or anybody that can put these on there. Now, so that being said, the screenwriter for Air was extremely, extremely nervous. And you say, why? Because he was awaiting Michael Jordan's blessing in writing this. And also how Viola Davis actually became the protagonist. So this came from Variety. Before Air could get the green light, Ben Affleck needed one last seal of approval. With months of development already complete, the director flew out to meet with Michael Jordan, seeking his blessing for the film, which explores the NBA's star's landmark 1984 sponsorship with Nike and the origin of the Air Jordan line. For screenwriter Alex Convery, this was the most stressful 24 hours of his career. He says, either this was going to get made, or this was and be my very first produced movie, or it was all going to fall apart. Back at square one, he recalls in a conversation with Variety. To do this, to really do this responsibly, you really need Michael to say yes. Ben said in the first meeting, "We will not do this movie if Michael doesn't want it to be done." Deja vu, waiting for a call that could change his life. Convery found himself in a situation that he had practically written in his own screenplay. Air culminates with a Hail Mary meeting between the Jordan family and Nike executives, led by scrappy Sonny Verasco, once again played by Matt Damon, who takes the wheel during the pitch by looking the then incoming rookie Jordan in the eyes and expounding about his generational talent, predicting a future of how it was going to come to elevate the sport himself. And by the way, that monologue was unbelievable. Anybody who's seen it knows what I'm referring to. Orozco's soliloquied idealism fades over the following days, waiting by the phone to learn if Jordan bought his agreement. Looking back, so much of what Sonny is saying is exactly how I was feeling as a stuck screenwriter, he laughs. Him saying, I have a feeling. I know this can be something. I'm the only one who could probably see it. But I do laugh. It is way too obvious. To get Jordan to visit Nike headquarters, Verasco goes behind a bunch of executives wanting him to steer clear of the rising star, whose reputation is seen to be as too outsized for the Nike basketball division's slim budget. Like his protagonist, Conroy reveals that he went rogue in writing the screenplay for Air, chipping away at it in between writing gigs. Even once he began, even once he began a shared finished draft, producers warned him that the project was unlikely to be approved by the necessary parties. I didn't tell my agent or my managers. I was doing it because I knew they would say, "Don't write it. Don't spec something you don't have the control rights to." Conroy had already learned this lesson the hard way after penning a script about the rising Marvel Comics and rivalry leaders Jack Kirby and Stan Lee. The screenwriter says his quote heart was in the blender, end quote, when the project couldn't find a way off the ground. Nevertheless, Conroy couldn't help himself. The writer grew up in the suburbs of Chicago during the 1990s, witnessing close up the unmatched fervor for Jordan and the six championship franchise dynasty. Reliving the Bulls' glory days was with the hit The Last Dance in 2020. That's how he found his creativity activated by an antidote in this series that details Nike's unlikely deal with Jordan. My version of what my version of right of what you know is what you're most passionate about, he says. I just saw the movie, which rarely happens. I never have good ideas, but it was just all there. I didn't want to write it because I had no one else that I had because but I had to because no one else knows that there's something here. Conroy understood that early on that Jordan's couldn't be an explicit character in the screenplay. The NBA star is a spectral presence in air, sometimes commercially so. The 21-year-old rookie can be seen walking into a business meetings, but always facing away from the camera with his head just out of frame. Jordan only speaks once in the film, and it's one word on the other end of the phone call. Now, I was fascinated about that because I didn't know if that was somebody else's voice or his. That's interesting. In previous interviews, Conroy had compared Jordan's narrative function to the sharks in Jaws, a looming force of nature that goes unseen. The less of you show of him, the more powerful the idea of him is, Conroy says. The original spec script details the climactic cut to Jordan's face during Verasco's speech to him, but the idea was promptly scrapped. To Ben's credit, for the first time we sat down, he was like, "You have to pick you one or the other." The minute the headline comes out of which actor is going to play Michael Jordan, that will only be the story of the movie. Instead, Air finds this conduit for the Jordan family in Viola Davis, who portrays the star's mother, Dolores, and she was unbelievable. A woman carefully navigating the onslaught of businessmen, judging which parties will actually pay the value they see in her son. In the, by the way, this may, I'm saying now, this may have spoilers in it. So if you guys haven't seen it, I should have put that. I didn't read this all the way through. In the film's climax, Dolores calls Verasco out to prove the deal, provided that Jordan receives a fraction of the revenue for all Nike products featuring his name and image. Verasco is deflated at first. It's not even that he disagrees with the principle, it's a sponsorship deal that simply has not worked like that before. Um, okay, there's not too much left, so guys, bear with me. It's only another minute or so. Knowing the Jordan family gets their due at the end, I just felt like that it would shine through than the idea of the executives at Nike. It's the Jordan family that has the final victory, Conroy says. The way that Ben puts it is Dolores suddenly becomes a protagonist. The guy you thought you were rooting for the entire movie suddenly becomes the guy you're rooting against. Conroy, there are mixed emotions for his first produced screenplay coming to fruition as the Writers Guild of America prepares for a potential strike. The screenwriter calls an renewed WGA contract, quote, long overdue. The ultimate triumph of Air is watching an athlete receive rightful compensation for a product with his name on it. As negotiations continue between the WGA and major studios, Conroy's sentiment is that writers are only seeking the same. The business has been changing under our feet for a long time. The way writers are compensated is not reflected in that change, he says. There are writers that are going to be affected by this more and less than others. That's the painful part of going into any battle. Not everyone is going to be affected equally, but all of these places are profit driven. If they could cut us out now, they would. It's the power of the guilds. We've gotten as far as we have now. As Dolores looks out for her son while negotiating Nike, Converse sees this labor rally among WGA members as a necessary, deserved investment in the future. William Goldman does not have any health care. It's crazy. Patty does not have any health care. I wouldn't either if these people before me, who didn't know me and probably never will, didn't go on strike. Here we are, and we're ready. Thank you guys for bearing with me while I read that whole thing. I didn't think it was that long. But, um, so let me just get to your comments real quick, Kyle Kobe. You've been waiting so patiently here. I watched Air yesterday and it was a good commentary. Yeah, no. Oh, thank you. You watched the spoiler cast. Thank you about that. Yeah, no, I wanted to put as much context and everything else into it because it's one of those things that I think it's not only important for everybody to see, okay, because of the shoes and everything, but how sports are changed. This isn't, you got to understand, this is not Jerry Maguire. This is the only, this isn't Moneyball. And I think that's important to really understand because those two films were about the big picture of the sport, right? Um, yeah. So I think that when you have something like that, and it's just about a person, you know, we need more movies like this, Air and Elvis, that explain stories with new actors. Like, imagine if we got a Michael Jackson movie. So, interesting point about Michael Jackson, and I could be wrong about this. I believe they're developing a Jackson film. It's very, um, it's in its early stages right now. They don't know what the story would be or how it would be or whatever else, but they are developing one. And to your point about, things like this, you got to remember musical biopics for the past 7 years have been huge. Okay. Whether it is A Star is Born, even though that wasn't a biopic per se, whether you have Rocket Man, whether you have Bohemian Rhapsody, whether you have Judy, whether you have Elvis, all of these things are starting to come into fruition. And it wouldn't shock me. As a matter of fact, um, they are actually in development right now. So James Mangold is actually developing a film about Bob Dylan. And Bob Dylan, of course, is a legendary artist, is going to be played by Timothée Chalamet. And he's going to be doing his own singing. So that's going to be fascinating when we get more on that. So I'd like to see that. Yeah. So we'll see what happens. But this is so getting back to what I was saying about Air. It's interesting that he makes a correlation. Okay. But it's also fascinating to see how, you know, he wanted to get Michael Jordan's blessing. And I tend to agree with, you know, because I mean, look, I have an idea for a spec script for Rounders 2. It's called All In. I have the idea, but I could never get the rights. Okay? Because of everything. Um all that being said, this was incredible. I love how they were able to put Viola Davis in that protagonist role. She was amazing as Dolores. The whole movie was just, and it doesn't seem like 2 hours. And we talked about this, and it made $20 million. So it's gonna really, really, really be good. Um, so I'm interested in seeing that. What do you guys think? Have you seen Air? If so, how many times? What did you think of it? Do you own a pair of Air Jordans? If so, or which Air Jordans are your most favorite? Let me know down in the comments and we'll get back to everybody. Okay, so before we head on to the next story, isn't Timothy going to be in Walker? Yes, he is. So that is a December release. That is a December release. And don't forget, Coco, he's going to be in Dune 2. So he's going to have a really big year coming up in the November and December. I think it's December Walker comes out. So November and December, he's going to have a really big end of the year. So, so let's move on to the next story. And I did a story, I think last week, about HBO Max and how they are now being investigated by the Department of Justice, and how they had, or they will be taking off 186 titles throughout 55, 60 years, and all of those titles are going to be gone. And I sat down and I read the letter to you guys, and you guys were very patient in listening, but it displayed a lot of concerns that they had. HBO Max is now going to relaunch, and they are going to try and do this. And so the pricing of this is now up in the air. So this comes from the Hollywood Reporter. What's one way to drum up anticipation from a streaming service merger? Keep the new name a secret. As Warner Brothers Discovery prepares to unveil its refreshed streaming service on April 12th. We're only 48 hours away from this, guys. Outside partners are still awaiting official word on what the exact merged HBO Max Discovery streamer is going to be named, as executives continue to refer to the service by the code name Beam, according to people familiar with the matter. Now, the code name has been referenced for several months, although it's unclear if they're going to, that's just shorthand for something, or is it going to be, you know, in house and whatnot. The event, taking place at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on the Warner Brothers lot in Burbank and streaming online, is set to showcase what the merged company's marquee streaming service will look like as it loses the HBO Max name and gains programming from Discovery Plus. Even if Beam is used internally, WBD executives are widely expected to announce that the updated streaming service will be called Max, which will give a nod to the original HBO Max name but losing the HBO branding. A quick search of Max.com also appears to suggest Warner Brothers takeovers the domain up until mid-February. Was previously registered to the vitamin and supplement brand Max International. The URL is now registered to Monitor, a domain management and security firm that works with large corporations, including Warner Brothers Discovery. And on CNN, an airing of a 4-part docuseries, Heaven's Gate, The Cult of Cultists, that was about David Koresh and the whole Waco thing that happened 30 years ago, was touted as a promo as a Max original. Content-wise, Max will differ from its predecessors in that it won't be enticing viewers to subscribe by offering same-day films on HBO Max, as was the case with Dune, Wonder Woman 1984, and The Matrix Resurrection during what was called, quote, Project Popcorn, end quote, in 2021. That was when they had to put all the feature films day and date. That move away from the streaming first film mentality, championed by former Warner Media CEO Jason Kilar, comes as a Warner Brothers Discovery continues to cut costs under its new leadership during the fourth quarter of 2022. WBD reported $217 million in streaming losses, down from more than $600 million reported in the fiscal third quarter. There was a lot of content that wasn't being viewed, WBD CEO David Zaslav said during the company's February 23rd earnings call. That's what led us to the conclusion that direct-to-streaming movies were providing no real value to us. Original TV programming will continue with projects in the works that include a Harry Potter live-action series and a Sherlock Holmes television franchise, with Robert Downey Jr. attached as an executive producer, as well as the highly anticipated next seasons of House of the Dragon and The White Lotus. And don't forget, guys, they're going to be having The Last of Us come on, too, at some point. But for all those interested in watching Chip and Joanna Gang's Magnolia Network, or the shows from the 90 Day Fiancé universe, fret not. Discovery Plus will remain as a standalone service, even as their programs are going to be added to the Max service, thanks to the lower cost, low churn, and profitability. If anything, Zaslav said during the earnings call that the addition of Discovery Plus content on Max will help convert some of those existing Discovery Plus subscribers into Max subscribers. Our strategy is to leave no sub behind, he said. We have profitable subscribers that are very happy with the product offering on Discovery Plus. So why would we shut them off? As of April 12th, lingering questions on how the WBD would price out its subscription tiers, which begins at $9.99 for the ad-supported tier and $15.99 for the ad-free for the current iteration of HBO Max. While the $15.99 monthly price point is on par with Netflix, HBO Max's supported tier is currently at $9.99, the highest of all the ad-supported subscriptions offered by Netflix, Disney Plus, Hulu, Paramount, and Peacock. Warner Brothers Discovery most recently reported having 96.1 million streaming subscriptions, with the relaunch being a key toward growth next month. The relaunch or launch of a combined product is absolutely critical because for the first time, we're going to be able to put together all the content together, said the CFO at a Morgan Stanley investor event in March. We believe that there's going to have to be positive impacts on engagement, on churn, on subscription acquisition. The exec also stated earlier in the year on the earnings call that the relaunch of the combined service would be bolstered by, an increase in marketing spending support and premier content launches, end quote. Following next week's preview, the updated streaming service, the company will hold its annual stockholders meeting in May. Okay, lot to digest there. Lot to digest. Okay, so here's the thing. Okay. I don't know where to start. Okay, let's start at the top. Okay. The fact is that, first and foremost, okay, I'm going to take the picture off so I can talk. First and foremost, we have a company that is in serious, serious trouble because the Department of Justice is going to be looking into them, or Congress or senators or legislators want to look into HBO Max because they've removed so much content. And you guys can Google the letter or go back and watch the video, okay? Because they basically, it is such a scathing video, and that's necessary to talk about. So they're trying to get their attention off of that, okay? That's first and foremost. Now, this relaunch had been happening for a while, and we all know about that, okay? The thing is, okay, now you talk about pricing, okay? Pricing is one of those things where, just like Netflix, okay, if you remember all those years ago, they never, ever, ever had ad tiers, okay? But they have, the only way that they were going to get revenue, okay, is by having you pay for non-commercials, or not, kind of like every couple of, it's like you're on YouTube. Okay, so I have premium, so I'm lucky about this. But it's like you have YouTube, okay? And if you have YouTube Premium like myself, you don't get any ads. Okay? Now, let's say you're not as fortunate, okay? And you actually do. Maybe you watch 2 or 3 or 4 videos and then you'll have an ad pop up. Okay? That's what they're trying to do. Now, every time you guys watch an ad on this stream, okay, on the videos, I get money. It's very small. It's like 4 or 5 cents, but I get money. Okay. But nonetheless, they have to get, because even Zaslav said it himself. Okay. The subscribers are so incredibly important. Okay. It's one of those things where the fact is that they're going to be bumping this up to $15.99 for the current iteration. Okay. I mean, look, I'll pay for it. I mean, I don't watch HBO Max, a lot, but I'll pay for it, or I might, knock it down to the other one. Here's the interesting thing, though. Okay, something to be said about this. So they have announced, okay, Warner Brothers has announced that they are going to be coming out with a new Harry Potter series. I'd be curious to get your guys' thoughts on that, because I don't need a new Harry Potter series. Not that I wasn't a bigger Potter. I've seen all the movies. I'm just not as in depth as some people. The Sherlock Holmes one. My question is, and we know that our DJ is going to be an executive producer. Why? I don't necessarily need. The other thing too is you're going to have you're going to have um, The Last of Us in a couple of years. So I think what they're trying to do is deflect from the fact that they're being, in investigation. The other thing too is, at the end of the day, okay, and even Zaslav said this here, okay, there wasn't a lot of content that was there was a lot of content that just wasn't being viewed. So instead of what he did, instead of taking it off little by little by little by little, he took it off all at once. So you have 186 titles all leaving the streaming at one time. Even if there is going to be a relaunch, what are you doing? Huh? I think that's a little unorthodox. Nonetheless, there is a lot of flux going on. And the fact that they're putting all this stuff on the same channel, fine. I'm happy with it. Great, there's more content. But you got to do it slowly but surely and work it in. You don't just remove it all. It's like peeling a band aid off. You rip the band aid off, it might hurt. It's a horrible analogy, but you get the understanding. You take all that content off at once, there are serious red flags. Because, as the letter stated, you're not giving the consumers enough choices and you're charging them money for it. I don't know. And it's a bad move. And by the way, they're probably number 2 or number 3 as far as streaming services. Disney Plus being the first. Okay, I think they've taken over Netflix. Netflix would probably be number 2. HBO Max number 3. And the only reason I got HBO Max, to be frank, was for The Last of Us. That's it. I mean, I've watched other things. Like I started watching the Harley Quinn's animated series. I love that. I mean, I've watched some stuff, but it's not like I go on HBO Max every single day. We'll see what happens. But this is supposed to. I am going to get up on Wednesday, and I am going to watch the relaunch because I'm really interested to see whatever it's called. It has to be better than what it was. So let's. So HBO Overkill, HBO. Yeah. Now I'm really curious to see what the name is going to be, because I mean, look, if you don't, you have to have HBO. I mean, honestly, Coco, that's not bad. HBO Plus is not bad, because what you're doing is you're putting the Discovery Plus in there, and you're keeping the HBO moniker. So I think that might not be. That would be a good one. Beam. God help us if they need Beam. That's almost as bad as Peacock. But I think that it's one of those things that we'll see what happens. I will give it a chance. I will see what happens and do that. So yeah. Anyways, guys, what do you think about this? What do you think about the rebranding? What do you think that they're going to call it? Also, do you have HBO Max? When it does hit in a couple of days, come back on the show. Let me know what your thoughts are. Okay? I'm really curious to see, is it, user friendly? Can you find your favorite shows easy? All of that good stuff. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments and I'll get back to everybody. Okay. So he says HBO Overkill is my favorite. Yeah, that sounds good too. Because the thing is, they're going to be putting a lot of this content. I'll be curious to see how much of this content comes back in a couple of years. I definitely will, Coco. Okay, so I thought we'd end on kind of a fun note today. Now everybody knows Quentin Tarantino. He's developing his last movie, and I think that it's going to be good. I think it's going to be called either The Movie Reviewer or The Reviewer. It's going to talk about one of the very first movie critics, The Movie Critic, I believe it's called. Anyways, so I found this article in IndieWire today, and only Tarantino could do this. And by the way, guys, I should warn you, this is kind of a long article. I will put the pictures up for you guys, but bear with me. I'm really curious to get your thoughts on this. So, what if I told you that Quentin Tarantino was going to be putting Elvis in animation. How would you guys think about that? So this comes from IndieWire. And Tarantino inspired Elvis, Agent Elvis, and that's what you see. This first picture is what you're seeing. The King battles the Manson family, drug dealers, and Robert Goulet. Agent Elvis is the hand-drawn adult animated Netflix series from Sony Pictures Animation and directed by Fletcher Mullins. And it reimagines Elvis Presley as a super cool spy in a wild, gory, drugged-out alternate reality. It crosses Archer with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, putting the King square in the crosshairs of everyone from the Manson family and Howard Hughes to Richard Nixon and Timothy Lear, all while retaining recognizable signposts from Presley's life, from concert specials to his hatred of Robert Goulet. There's also an array of hilarious cameos, including Stanley Kubrick, the famed director who's no longer with us, including Stanley Kubrick shooting a stage-directed moon landing. Guess who ends up in the spacesuit? And a young George Lucas getting inspiration from a lightsaber from Hughes' radioactive urine stream weapon. Agent Elvis is so meta that Baz Luhrmann even voices the director of Presley's final film, Change of Habit. Now, of course, the caveat there is Baz Luhrmann actually did direct Elvis. So, in fact, the Quentin Tarantino-like vibe was a key part of the pitch when creators Priscilla, bear with me, guys, can't talk today. Elvis's wife, Priscilla, I can't talk. I can't see her name for some reason. And rock star Johnny Eddy first approached Sony in 2004. Little did they know that the director was simultaneously embarking on his Once Upon a Time in Hollywood revenge fantasy to slaughter the Manson family. Okay, here we go. And as it turns out, Manson and his cults are the centerpiece of the premiere episode. So this is the actual photograph from the premiere episode, okay? And it's called Full Tilt, in which they target Elvis as he's preparing for his 1968 comeback. So anybody who's seen Elvis, it's that scene where they were supposed to do the Christmas special, and he comes out and he does that. This is right after Dr. King gets murdered, or Kennedy. It was Dr. King, and so they target Elvis as he's preparing for his 68 special. Eddie, who serves as the showrunner with Mike Arnold, Archer, specifically chose that pivotal moment as the launching pad for the series because that's when they thought Elvis was at his coolest. So we were kind of like neck and neck with talking with Tarantino. Eddie told IndieWire, who would come out first in that like Charles Manson of it all. Elvis was really on Manson's kill list, and it felt so like a natural for a jumping off point. The catalyst for the series, though, was the bizarre meeting between Elvis and President Nixon in 1970, where the rock star offered his services as a federal agent to combat illegal drug culture. That encounter found its way into episode 5, where Elvis tries to intercept a secret file from the White House. Naturally, this Elvis regrets meeting Nixon after he witnesses this nasty racism. They were able to tap into other bizarre aspects of Elvis's life, too, such as his obsession with martial arts and his pet chimpanzee, Scatter. Here portrayed as a coked-up Hunter S. Thompson, like sidekick, who's voiced by Tom Kenny. But the writers were careful about the use of historical revisionism. At one point, we were debating whether or not Manson should die, said Eddie. And we were like, no, because he has to stay alive to become the counterculture demon. So our history tries to stay true to our real history, while our crazy alternate history works behind the scenes. Although Elvis initially resists being recruited into the covert spy organization, TCB, by snarky agent C.C. Ryder, he relents when offered a jet plane by the Nick Fury, like Commander, who's voiced by Don Cheadle. Also joining Elvis in his crime-fighting antics is good old boy sidekick Bobby Ray, played by Johnny Knoxville, who's handy with cars and planes. The story has had to focus on all of how it was going to play out as Elvis is slowly learning how to be a spy. Arnold says, what happens to him without remembering dates back to when he was in the military. At the same time, growing the mystery of the big threat and who's behind it. Priscilla, who voiced herself, was on board from the outset, with the absurd comedy having appeared in The Naked Gun, ensuring that Elvis was a fan of the Monty Python and Mel Brooks collection. The writers that pushed to the edge, and I think they were really brave for it and let them go maybe a little further than she particularly wanted it herself to. Fortunately, Matthew McConaughey was always the first choice to voice Elvis, so they got him to voice Elvis. Okay, I want to bear with me. So this is the. Fortunately, Matthew McConaughey was always the first choice to voice Elvis. It was not a hard get. How do we make this cool? Eddie says. We wanted the look for the show to be cool. We want all the energy to feel cool like that singular character. And Matthew was such a wonderful fit. We were so fortunate to have him because he had this effortless swagger, and he found it in the music and Elvis's voice that he brought into every line. He worked very hard at that, and he really nailed it. The initial character designs were handled. So it goes in and talks about the initial character designs and everything else. I'm not going to bore you with that. Route provide. Um, so here's one more picture, and then we'll get to the end of the story. So this is Priscilla, right there. Okay. This, I gotta say, looks unbelievable. The monkey here. So here's the monkey we're talking about. I can't wait for this. I cannot wait for this. Now, I've never seen Archer. I know of him. I know we saw it on FX. I know it's a TVMA show. I know there's a lot of dirty humor, crude humor in there. Not a South Park type of way, but oh my God. If this isn't just absolutely fantastic, I love everything about this. I love the fact that they're keeping the history to it. They're actually starting out with Manson, which I find interesting, frankly. Okay. But right around the same time, I mean, this is history here, right? Um, so everything about it. I mean, we have Priscilla in there who actually voices her. This looks unbelievably good. Unbelievably good. And to get Matthew McConaughey to do this, I can't wait for this. So, yeah. He's like, what? He wants to put Elvis in the anime. Yeah. So it's called Agent Elvis. And this is going to be on Netflix. Show looks like Archer but with Elvis. Yes, and that's exactly what it is, Coco. That's exactly what even you can tell from the animation, right? I'd like to see the monkey character. Yeah. So that's going to be fun. Scatter is going to be a blast to see. You know, going back to this because you know he's going to like follow his lead and everything else. This is going to be like a sidekick type of thing. To be honest, it's so random but awesome. Yes, I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. And yeah, it something we didn't ask for, but didn't know we didn't. Yeah, it's completely. But see, that's Tarantino. But we needed it. He says. Um, yeah, I mean, I think the fact that you have this, it's just awesome. And you can just tell this is colorful too, right? That picture right there is very colorful. Okay, whether it's the orange in the background, or you have the wings, or her top, or Charlie's dark. It's just But this is Tarantino in a nutshell, right? This is Tarantino in a nutshell. I mean, look how cool he looks there, right? I mean, how awesome is that? And then you have Priscilla who's playing herself. Like, how cool is this? I'm so excited for this. So excited for this. I can't wait for this. It's going to be a blast to see. It's very unique for him, yeah. But that's what Tarantino is. He's unique, Coco. Everything that he does is unique. You don't see him make sequels, you don't see him do remakes. Everything he crafts, he takes years to do. Whether it's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, whether it's Kill Bill, whether it's, Pulp Fiction, he crafts Django. He crafts everything himself because he knows what he wants. That's why he's won 2 Academy Awards. This looks awesome, though. This looks awesome. I can't wait for this. I really, I am signed up. Sign me up. That's all I gotta say now. Sign me up because this is going to be one of the best. This is going to be. My guess is this is going to be right around the time that maybe his final film comes out. We'll see. I don't know, but I can't wait for this. Anyways, guys, what do you think about this? Are you interested in a Agent Elvis series? Do you think that it's going to be a flop? Do you think it's going to be a hit? Who, you know, would you sit down and watch it? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section, and I'll get back to everybody. Okay, so that's it for today. A couple of quick announcements before we go. Number one, like as the thing says, if you haven't already, please hit that like and subscribe button. It helps the channel. I know that everybody is, we're getting more and more views and people are liking these videos, and that's great. Want to get them out to everybody. If you want extra content, head on over to patreon.com. There's 2 levels there for you guys. We've got one that is $5 a month, and you got one video that's Mob Mondays, and then if you want to do it $10 per month, you'll get 2 videos. You'll get Mob Mondays and Rewatch Wednesdays, and that is it's good stuff. I am going to be doing a Mission Impossible rewatch. So Mission Impossible is a couple months out, but I am starting tonight. I am going to start to be doing a Mission Impossible rewatch, and every single Friday, beginning June 2nd, you guys are going to be getting a brand new video. So we're going to run the gamut. We're going to go from Mission Impossible all the way down to Fallout. For 6 weeks, you guys are going to be getting a video on that, all leading up to Dead Reckoning Part 1. All the spoiler casts, those are yours. Those are going to be coming to you. I have ideas for two videos coming up. One of them, Infinity War is turning 5 this year. I don't believe that. So it's turning 5 at the end of this month on the 27th of April. It will be turning 5. So I'm going to be doing a 5-year anniversary Avengers Infinity War. I'm going to rewatch it, get some ideas about that. And then, so he said, "Oh, I missed the last of his breakdown." Yeah, no, I do too. I can't wait to see more. Hopefully, very, very soon, Coco. I mean, it's going to be, but you know what though? I've got a lot of stuff coming up on the channel for you though. There's a lot of stuff. So, as I said, Mission Impossible breakdowns. Okay, on the 27th. Okay, Infinity War. I'm going to be doing a 5-year anniversary, and I'm going to be doing a. I can't. This tells you how old I am. I was 7 when this came out. Return of the Jedi is turning 40 this year. So I'm going to be going to see. I saw it 16 times in the theaters. I was 7, so what you call it what you say to that. But I'm going to be going to see Return of the Jedi. I always have something to watch. Yeah, and I try to give you guys as much content as I can. because streaming, it's nice to watch your favorite movies, but when you can watch stuff for free and these shows and everything else, um, it's good. So, um, that being said, Return of the Jedi is turning 40 this year. So I'm going to be going to see that in the theater for a re-release. I will be doing a 40th anniversary um, uh, watch of Return of the Jedi, and we'll talk about that and all that good stuff. Star Wars, and guys, I know I didn't cover Star Wars Celebration. I realize that um, because I'll be honest with you, I'm not really into all of these shows. I like, don't get me wrong, I love Star Wars, but I'm not into Bad Batch and the Acolyte and you know Rebels, and that's just not my thing. I just focus usually on the films itself, and so um, but he says I wasn't even born. Yeah, I tells you something. But you know what though, Star Wars and it's all of its glory. Um, it really changed filmmaking for the better. So but yeah, I'm gonna sit down and watch Return of the Jedi, and we'll be talking about that. Um, and then of course I don't have to tell you guys, we've got a huge month of May coming up. I'm not gonna run through the movies because you guys can Google that yourself. Whether it's Guardians or Fast 10 or The Flash coming out in June or Spider Verse or whatever it is, all these spoiler casts are gonna be coming to you guys. So I'm gonna have a very busy May and June. Um, one thing though, I am not going to be doing the roundup. So in lieu of that, okay, you guys are going to be getting the spoiler cast. You're still going to be getting daily shows, but you're not going to be getting the roundup. Um, and that's it. Yeah. So I mean, there's a ton of stuff. If you want, as I said, if you want to go help me out, patreon.com. I have a little something I'm putting together as far as, I'll have to retweak the PowerPoint, but I have something that we can do. I will have something to make a successful um, YouTube channel. So if you guys actually want to get started and you don't know where to go or what to do, okay, I'm going to be offering, probably will be ready beginning of May. I will be offering something that is, it'll be about $100, but I will show you how to get a YouTube channel going and up and running and get it monetized and all that good stuff. So, okay, that's it. That's all I got today. Thank you very much for watching. Um, do the 3 things you have to do: be safe, be careful, and have a great rest of your day. I'm David Steele, and you have been watching Real Talks. Bye bye, guys.